FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
Right now, it's Monday. Tonight's a big foreign policy presidential debate. Joining me is foreign policy expert with D.C. International Advisory, former advisor to former VP Dick Cheney, Stephen Yates. Stephen, happy Monday to you.
Hi, Dana. Good to be with you again.
Tonight's debate, always good to have you. Tonight's debate focusing on foreign policy. What are you in particular going to be looking for tonight?
Well, I'm hoping that Mitt Romney gives a very clear and unvarnished version of his critique of Obama's tenure on leading the world, in other words, not leading it, and letting events sort of play themselves out across the broader Middle East, now more volatile, more dangerous. Schiefert will be an interesting moderator. We've had an interesting experience with moderators in debates past, but he has carved out at the end supposedly 15 minutes to talk about the rise of China and tomorrow's world. That's something that really has not been addressed thus far.
That's right. And that's there's a lot of stories that have been circulating over certain individuals that are involved in very close to the president who are actually very high up in Chinese government. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. And of course, they'll be getting into Iran and Syria and Russia. The interesting thing that I see in all of this, Stephen, is that for so long, for the past several years, we've had people on the left trying to say that conservatives are somehow neocons. But who has it been in the last 4 years that has put the Obama administration just put boots on the ground in the border between Jordan and Syria. We've had involvement in Libya, arms trading, so on and so forth. That's kind of an interesting turnabout.
Well, the president became assassin-in-chief and guiding drones into Pakistan and Yemen and has beaten his chest more than it's healthy when it comes to the operations our special operations forces actually execute. But the problem is that he has been very good at breaking things, but not so much in putting things healthily back together. So the most empowered forces so far are the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda. Right.
And I'm sure as well that defense spending is going to be a big subject of discussion tonight. And I know I look for them to get into what they call the sequestration. The last year's budget deal, we stand to lose $500 billion over 10 years from our defense budget. Romney and Obama have very different positions on this. I don't think that this is going to make the president look really strong considering everything that's happened in Arab nations in the past several weeks. I don't see this being a good debate for him, Stephen.
I don't either, but I don't think the last few debates have been very good for him in any case. I think Romney has basically been clear and strong in most of them. He got tripped up on the Libya question the last time, but that wasn't exactly a level playing field. And in the end, he was correct, and hopefully most people figured that out. But on defense spending, I think that is a very difficult question. I think on balance, most Americans feel like we spend too much on too much. And even in defense, I think that's probably more right than a lot of my conservative friends would like to believe. The problem is, what do you do? What are your priorities in going in and cutting? And you need to first have a mission that's to be accomplished and let that guide what equipment, personnel, and other things are needed. And Barack Obama just seems to have numbers. And when he cuts defense, it's like squeezing a balloon that inflates elsewhere. You don't ever cut the bottom line across the board in the budget with him.
Right. This is an interesting here's something that I wanted to ask you about in terms of going into this foreign policy debate. What I've heard from the Obama camp and their sympathetic media surrogates is a lot of criticism about what they say is Mitt Romney's lack of foreign policy. Now, when President Obama was running, as then Senator Obama, the whole entire reason that they added Joe Biden to the ticket was because Joe Biden was supposed to be this, and don't laugh, this big giant foreign policy expert. Now they're lobbying these same criticisms towards Mitt Romney. They're saying, well, he just has absolutely zero foreign policy experience. How does the Romney camp effectively battle that narrative?
Well, number one, it needs to say they're very pleased that President Obama now has 4 years of foreign policy experience, having had none going into office. But as everyone can plainly see, quantity of experience does not equate to quality of judgment and has absolutely nothing to do with accomplishment. We need to focus on results. That's what Romney is all about. Like every president who comes in, you can't know what will happen, but you know what his priorities are, what his values are, the people on whom he will most rely, and that's basically where you go. But this is a referendum on the tenure of Barack Hussein Obama, not on Mitt Romney.
Right. Well, and this will be a very interesting debate because I think that other than the economy, this is the issue on which the president is the weakest. I hope that Fast and Furious will feature significantly in tonight's debate. I thought Mitt Romney could have been a lot more aggressive and not be steamrolled by Candy Crowley in the last debate over this. I think it's imperative that he mentions this because this is a huge scandal for the Obama administration. Will you be disappointed if he doesn't hit this hot and heavy tonight?
I'll be disappointed if he doesn't put it in again. I mean, I think that their calculus is he has to be careful about how aggressive he appears. But this is where I hope that he has some wise counsel from my old boss, Dick Cheney, who seemed to be the master of saying very strong things while sounding very understated in delivery. But he needs to be firm. He needs to push it. He was stymied by the moderator last time when trying to raise it. And so I think he needs to build on that.
Right.
But Schiefert, by his outline, has sort of laid out, unless it fits into America's role in the world, he wants nothing to do with the topic.
I want to switch it up a little bit and ask you about this story that concerns the victims of the Fort Hood shooting. And as you know, the president, and you've railed on this before, this administration has really so far refused to characterize what happened at Fort Hood as a terror attack, even though all signs, including Major Nidal Hassan screaming Allahu Akbar and everything else, all signs point at it as being an act of terror. Now, the secondary insult that comes from this terror attack now includes these shooting victims. They have these combat injuries, and they're not going to be able to actually get benefits to go along with those combat injuries because the administration will not call it a terror attack at all. This is something I hope Romney brings up in the debate. What do you make of this new story?
Well, it's an outrage, and I think that it should be brought up, and people should speak up about these things a lot more. I mean, really, fundamentally, the president refuses to identify our enemy. And unfortunately for us, our enemy is within our borders, and it shows up repeatedly. Just recently, they have stymied another attempt to attack the United States. And this one on Fort Hood was tragic. And if you can't tell the truth about who your enemy is, you can't tell the truth about what an act of terror is, it just further undermines the notion that the president says that there are these acts of terror, and therefore if he's spoken and he's exercising any kind of leadership. And, to withhold benefits from victims of an international terrorist plot using a U.S. military officer to conduct it is, I think, a travesty.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely be. I can't wait to see all of the issues which these candidates discuss in the debate tonight. And, of course, we'll be talking to you about it as well. Coming up, Stephen Yates, DCIadvisory.org. Always a pleasure, Stephen. Thank you so much for your time every week.
Thank you, Dana. Take care.
Take care.